The other thing that I advocate is audit, 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 audit. Audit, audit, audit. There's an app, it's called iFunny. Some of you may have heard it. It's just an app. But every once in a while, you get these batch, it's funny pictures, like the kitty sitting in the dog bowl or something. You know, we've all seen those kind of ones. But there are a lot of inappropriateness going on in those kind of apps. So when I say audit, 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 you should know your kid's password to get on that phone. You should know their email addresses. As again, if they're going to hide something from you, there's not a whole lot you can do about that on the outset. And we'll talk about what you could do in a little bit. But you should have the addresses, the email addresses, the passwords, those things, because you want to be able to audit and look at it. And if you haven't audited it to this point, a lot of people ask me, well, I haven't done it and he's 17 years old. What do I do? I said, well, tell him you woke up on the other side of the bed and you're going to start auditing it. I mean, because I'm mom or I'm dad and I can. Now, what I would say and what I would advocate is, if I don't care what you find, it could be the worst of the worst XXX. Don't do the throwdown right that minute. You can say, hey, I found that. It's inappropriate. But because what's going to happen if you just blow them up right that minute? Probably going to shut down and they're going to change and do different things. Because part of being able to stop them is to gain their trust. Once they trust you, then you will be able to kind of get through that. And the other thing is that, like we've talked about earlier, we don't want to shame our kids into hiding. I want them to come talk to me. And all 6 of mine, I think, at some point now, will come talk to me if I catch them, and I've caught them. I mean, I've caught them all. I got 4 boys, 17, 13, 13, 10. Okay, you wouldn't believe what goes on at my house. But it's one of those things that you can communicate with them, and it can still be okay. It's not the end of the world. But again, I am huge on the audit, 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 audit. Go look, take that time. We spend time checking our Facebook messages, right? We spend time checking our work email at 9 o'clock at night, or we look at Instagram, or whatever the case may be. To invest the 5 minutes or 10 minutes in looking at your kid's phone. Share it with them. Hey, who did you talk to today? What did you do at school? And kind of introduce that conversation. Hey, you know, who's on Facebook today? Or kind of, you know, start those conversations. And I think you'll find that you'll be able to get to it, because we all got Facebook accounts so we could watch our kids. Well, now if they're not using Facebook, we've got to find another way. And we talked about it, obtain email addresses, passwords. There's all kinds of websites out there you can go to track and pay money to track kids and things. But you can do research on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Find out relationships. I know we all grew up in an age where we had friends we actually saw, right? They don't. Their world is vastly different. And they don't see their friends. They talk to them on Facebook or whatever. So what you want to do is research those relationships. Find out who is in their circle, their inner circle. There should be only some very few people in that inner circle. And then outside of that, in their trust circle, maybe a few more. Okay, but on the outside, that's where those Facebook people should be, way on those outside circles. So we want to establish what those relationships are. Excuse me. Some things that we want to kind of account for, look at, talk about: the home computer, the laptops, our network specifically, cell phones, iPads, iPods, tablets, e-readers, all of those things. Those are the types of devices that our kids have access to that we really want to limit. Because if you don't do them all, what good is it? Because at some point they're going to figure out and get around it. A halfway decent kid that's smart, honestly, you can take on the iPhone and you can remove the Safari app. And it takes me 20 seconds to go download a free browser. What good did it do me to really spend all that time and energy to take off his Safari app? Doesn't really do me any good, because if he's got a brain in his head, or she, which these kids do, they're going to go find from the app store, they're going to go find a new browser. It's pretty simple. Now, If you turn off the App Store, which you can do, now it's not quite as easy because they can't install anything new on your computer. So something to think about there. The question about the iPods, the iPads, it's a little more difficult, but you can restrict that, and I'll show you just a minute where it's at in some of the settings. But you can make on both Android platforms and Apple in the settings, there's places where you can restrict purchases from whatever they call it, the Google Store, the App Store, the iFunny Store, whatever store. But you can limit that kind of stuff. Some things, and I talked about it earlier, how this is the upper left-hand corner of that little picture. If you try to get on my computer, that's what you see. Unless you're me or my wife, and we have the password and we can get into it. Now again, it's in a public area. I have a laptop computer, and they don't even ask anymore. They used to. Can I borrow it? No, you can't. But again, you don't have to be a Microsoft wizard to go do here. Under user settings, in most now Mac, I'm not as familiar with any Mac users out there that okay, you guys are probably super genius with it. I'm not. I can figure it out, I guess, eventually. But at some point, even in the Mac platform, there is a restriction where you can make somebody log in to gain access to your computer. Again, I advocate that that's what you do. But it's usually under controls, security, user accounts, some terminology like that. You'll find it under the control panel or the administrative tools of that specific computer. Some other things we talked about in the CARE kind of model research. It's pretty simple. Let your kids, when they do that project on the computer or when you're auditing their computers or their phones or whatever, go to their search history. On the iPhone, it's really easy to do. You can go to their history and pull up everything they've searched on the internet. You can do the same thing in Yahoo and Google. All of the big search browsers have a history in it. And Google is even the greatest one because anytime they log in to check their Google Gmail, it saves their search history. So if they're searching something crazy at school that you don't know about or at the library, but they're logged in, it saves it to their search history, not just locally to that computer. So you can go back to Google and look at their search history from stuff they've done, not from that native computer at your house. They might be searching stuff elsewhere. Also, it saves if they're using some type of Google, if they're signed in their Google account and they're using their iPhone or their Android, it also saves it in their search history. So Google's is good for me because I can go back and I can find a lot of information. See, my mom told me a long time ago, don't drive fast, don't waste gas, and stay out of people's business. Let's see, what do I do for a living? I drive fast, I waste gas, and I'm in people's business. So I'm in the business of getting in your business. And so I'm really good at telling you how to get into your kid's business because that's going to save their life. Yes, ma'am? Some of them do. Okay, some of them do. But you just got to step up the game. Maybe you got to check every day. Because once a week. Because kids are inherently lazy. They are. They're inherently lazy. And so yes, they might do it diligently for a week or 2 or 3. But they will forget. And at some point when they forget, that's when you're going to start finding that information. It's like going fishing. You may not catch something every time you go fishing. But eventually you're going to feel the boat. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the K9 browser?
Not specifically, but
it's a free browser, and you can turn it off where nobody knows it's on. And then you can go and they can delete history, but you can still see what they have gone to. It's called K9, and it's a free browser.
Okay. So you would just download it on like their phone or their computer or whatever?
Well, that works on the home computer. It doesn't work as well on their phone, but on the home computer.
Okay. There is some things, and I just put a couple of them up here. There's a million of them. For the desktop or laptop computers, I actually use the one in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner. Again, I'm not advocating it. That's just the one I bought. It's called Web Watcher. It has a really cool dashboard. It takes screenshots every 10 seconds while they're on the internet. You can fix it however you want to do it. So I can see what they're doing. I can track their keystrokes. So now I have their all their email addresses and all their passwords, and I see where they're going, and it tracks and it takes pictures. And don't use this at work, especially if you suspect somebody's looking at something they shouldn't, because you open something up and it's a big, pretty, full color picture of whatever it is they've looked at. So be careful and don't open that at work. But the Net Nanny I've heard is really good, and the Cyber Sitter. Again, these are all things that you can download. They have restrictions on them. The Web Watcher one, the one I particularly use, have you ever tried to search something on the internet and you got the screen that says no results found or something along that lines? The Web Watcher, you can type in a known pornographic website, let's say, and if you've got that filtered, it will pull up, and it gives them the appearance that for whatever reason they can't find it anymore. It doesn't tell them, "Ha, I caught you," and a big face pops up, none of that. It actually runs in the background, and they never know it's there. You download it, you install it, it runs all the time, they never know it's there. I particularly like that particular one. Now, after a while, it doesn't take them long, they figure out, they're like, "The internet don't work." I'm like, "Really? Well, why don't you tell me what you were searching, and I'll be more than happy to see if I can fix it." "No, that's okay." "Okay, yes, sir."
What if kids just don't have a media plan on their phone?
Well, if they don't have a data plan on their phone, I'm okay with that, because
That's what I've done with my three. I have 14, 15, 17, and they still feel like they're in the Stone Age. They still don't have media.
and that's okay. But now I will tell you is where there's a will, there's a way. And if they got Wi-Fi on that phone, they will go to McDonald's, or they will go to Starbucks, or they will go somewhere, because there's a million places that they can get free Wi-Fi. They can't get free Wi-Fi at your house, but by goodness, they're going to get free Wi-Fi somewhere. So that's always a risk. What I'm saying is, one is never enough. You shut one door, that's never enough, because they're going to find another way, and you have to go find that door. And it's just a race. It's a constant move that you kind of have to stay on top of. These are the ones I've used. There's no guarantee that they're going to be there's no guarantee that they're going to solve every problem, but they'll go a long way to help you with some of those the problems as far as allowing access to certain websites. Back to mobile devices just for a second. Again, no passwords, lock screens, review bills. Parents forget that. Go look at your bill. If you see a spike in internet usage or texting or things, parents used to hear look for the kid who withdraws and stays in his room. Look for the kid who loses friends. Look for the kid who doesn't have any social activities, because that was the kid that was on drugs, right? That was the conversation that we all had when we were growing up. But the kid who has some of those very same symptoms is addicted to internet porn, or is addicted to something else, possibly. So that's why we're going to look. Search phone history. We're going to review pictures. I cannot tell you how important that is. Go through their pictures and look at what they're taking pictures of. As a detective, I cannot tell you how many times I've put somebody in jail for driving while intoxicated, and the very last picture on their phone was them with two other people in the bar, and the Coors Light sign behind them. I'm just like, that's great. That is going to be great. I'm going to blow that up real big and come to court. That's what we're going to look at. But kids do the same kind of thing. These selfies, look at them. See what they're wearing. Are they wearing the same clothes they left the house that morning in? Because that's pretty important. Where are they at when they're taking that picture? Those kind of things. Set up parental controls. We'll talk about that. Find My Phone app. That is the greatest thing in the world. If you don't have it, get it and use it on a regular basis. Know where they're at. Know where they're at.